Hi guys, I'm Katie Room from Periapsis Press, and today I have a full screen's worth of people. So we're going to talk about some criticisms, pros and cons of indie versus Tradpub. And here with me today is Michael Kane, author of After Moses, Jeff Rankin, author of a whole bunch of stuff. The Carnegie series, is that how you pronounce that?
Mm-hmm.
Like the occult detective stuff, as well as a number of other sort of horror tinged sci-fi fantasy stuff, mostly on the fantasy side of things, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And Jonathan Sheurger, author of the Shades of Black series, In Darkness Cast, and Afterlight is the second one.
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Hi to Patrick in the chat. And Anne, hi.
Anne's here too.
Old Faithfuls.
So, I have no slides today. And that is because I tweeted about doing this and contacted a whole bunch of people to join me to do this early in the day. And as I said on my last stream, if you make a commitment, that's when the baby interferes. So, no slides. Hopefully this will not crash and burn.
Baby's like, I sent something.
It's spooky. It happens to me every single time I decide to do something. Whether it's, he's been sleeping for a while, I should try to wash dishes. Boom. That's when he wakes up. Well, I was going to say hi to Michael Kane, but you are here in
I was just saying hi to Anne and Patrick. That was all. Without interrupting you. I was trying not to interrupt you.
Is this going to be like that thing where you guys are in the same room and you're texting each other?
So this is not inspired by necessarily anything in particular. Spencer from Fantasy Files, is that right? Yeah, the Fantasy Files podcast. I posted this video on Twitter a while ago, and I thought it was very interesting. He is another reader, so somebody who is not an author, not selling himself as an editor or otherwise involved in the industry. Just another reader giving his thoughts, and I thought they were very interesting. I tend to be extremely pro indie, and so I'm like none of those are real criticisms, but I thought it would be fun to talk about them and get your guys' input as well. And in my Discord, Michael Kane had asked me some like one question in particular about the longevity of indies that I thought would be fun to talk about as well. And he also brought something else up today. So hi to Jeff Park.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to keep track of the chat. It's just going to be a huge distraction for me. So I apologize to you guys. I know you guys will have your own fun in the chat like you always do. So I'll try to keep track of any really relevant stuff without completely losing the thread of the conversation. So I thought we might start with the video a little bit. Did you guys have anything you wanted to say about it before we sort of jumped in? If anybody took a look at it or not, I don't know.
Other than my 3-month-old kept me from watching it this afternoon like I intended to. So...
Is this like that bark they do in 101 Dalmatians? All the babies just let each other know that was the time.
It's bad.
He makes a lot of claims in that video. And spent a lot of time wondering, like, where are you getting this information at? Because I didn't buy a lot of it. I guess an example would be that most indies are pantsers. I was like, really? How would you know that?
I don't know about
That's
that.
That was my overall impression of many claims and not a lot to back it up.
Sure.
But not that I disagreed with everything. He made some good points, but I wish when he's saying the industry is like this or a group of people is like this, usually I want to hear that, I've talked to many people and here's what I'm hearing from, and that I didn't really get that from the video.
Sure. Let me...
It's like people are like, everything that I can see through this.
Right.
This.
So that may be what he's run into, for all to be perfectly fair, but I don't know that I would say that it's mostly pantsers and indie, that immediately I just go, so I see.
Yeah.
I saw this lady's notes one time, and they looked like what you see in like conspiracy theory. Like, it wasn't just what the book was about; it was what the book could have been about.
Oh, no.
That was kind of plotting beyond what I'm capable of doing.
That's extensive.
Yeah, it was like multiverse plotting. It was odd.
I suppose if you run out of new ideas, you can always go back and rewrite things from the...
Yeah, it's the Marvel approach. I mean, it was just one lady doing it in this case.
Well, it worked for Marvel for a while.
He worked for Marvel for a while. I mean, there's
did we start X-Men?
Well, that's yeah.
Okay, let me pull it up here. So this is Spencer from the Fantasy Files. I've been on the Fantasy Files before. He's an acquaintance and a mutual on Twitter, and I this is not to dump on him, right? That's what I'm trying to say here. But I thought this video was interesting. I'm going to start a little ways in. And at any point you guys want to say something, just start talking and I'll pause it, okay? And we won't watch this like straight through, but I think I had it on like 2. I don't like this new custom playback. 1.5 sound good to you guys? Sure. Okay.
You may not have otherwise read. We still plan to keep showing you guys awesome indie books when they pop up, but you may have noticed that we've been doing less of them over the past couple years, and that's for 3 reasons. One, honestly, those videos do not do as well on our channel. If we ever get super big, I would love to be able to have an indie book video get like thousands of views. But as it is right now, we're lucky to get like 15 views per video whenever we cover one. And
So I just want to say, like, that's just like standard.
Like, I'm hearing normal numbers here.
The sad but true case of nobody really watches review videos at all. I'm still planning on making a whole bunch of them when I have time, but like I have full confidence that they will do single digits.
Second reason, a lot of indie books do not have audiobooks, and we pretty much only read things through the audio format. There's also a third reason that I'm going to talk more about in a minute, but my point with all of this is that I've gotten a really good look at the indie scene over the years, and I wanted to share what I've observed of the differences between an indie book and a traditionally published one. I think this video is going to upset a lot of people, honestly, and I want to state here at the beginning, I love indie books. Some of my all-time favorite books are indie, like We Men of Ash and Shadow by H.L.
Okay, let me see if I can skip down a bit here.
He really likes audiobooks. And
Yes.
he's not wrong about that, but he talks about audiobooks quite a bit.
Yeah.
And that's, that's just honestly, they're just so expensive for most indies in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I know Amazon now has the capability to create an audiobook based upon an existing title. Have you guys looked into that at all?
AI narration, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think TJ did put one up, actually.
It doesn't sound bad.
Nice.
My only reservation has been that I want a British male voice, and they only have right now female British voices.
So
British
I don't want
accents.
I don't want to chase the whole AI thing because that's a separate topic entirely. But what I think the better option, I don't really love the idea of every indie going out, getting an AI thing, and then selling it. I'm much more comfortable with the idea of the AI being on the program side. So I would rather somebody have a piece of software that they are just running books through to listen to themselves.
Yeah, on the reader side.
On the reader side, because it's like, I mean, I can definitely say, look, I am in the middle of working on and getting the audio produced for my first book. Right, it's going to be like 22 hours. I'm paying a guy. He's going to be better than any AI for the next several years at least, right? So it's like it's there's no doubt it's going to be better for a long time, but like everything else AI, it's going to flood the market in a way that's just okay. And now everybody's going to have these books, and people are going to be feeling, well, is this worth my audio credit? Well, this one is my, it's just it's weird. I just, like everything else AI, I think a lot of indies should just be cautious for the next few years and wait for the dust settles, see what the market thinks is okay, see what is going to actually be able to create, I'm going to say, viable product. I know people have strong opinions on AI, but most of it right now is not really viable product. That's just, I think people should be cautious. Right, after Moses read by AI would be way too meta. I've thought about that before, actually. If I wrote a sci-fi that had like a constant robot companion, I would totally have that character voiced by AI completely. And I would train it from my own voice or something so that nobody could be complaining about ethics stuff, because I feel that would be a hilarious meta thing to do, to have one character, all of their lines be AI. But that's chasing a rabbit. Go back to, we're chasing all sorts of rabbits. But yes, that is a thing with indies. It's hard for us to do audiobooks well.
So is this capability, is this actually AI? I was under the impression it's almost more like text to speech, but I'm sure it's more sophisticated than that.
I'm assuming it's something similar to 11 Labs. I don't know if anyone played around with that. That was going around. I think it is actually AI, where it is now.
It's a large language model.
Yeah, now here, or similar anyway. Did you call it that when it's audio? I'm not even completely sure. For people that have issues with the ethics stuff related to AI, I think audio is significantly less difficult, because one, it is much easier for a company and whoever's creating the model to source their own audio samples in absolute mass for cheaper and completely, ethics problems free, if that makes sense. It's just much easier to source that than it is mass amounts of text or artwork. So I think you're not going to have those same questions for the most part, or at least they're going to be able to dodge that if they try to.
Well, it's also not just an indie problem.
Sure.
Like trad presses are doing the same thing. They don't have the money to produce audiobooks. Right. And so, I mean, the one that I was working at for a year, we were looking at AI narration or like text to speech. We looked at 11 Labs. To see what it would be like to put our books through that, because I mean, I published 130 books in 5 months for this publishing house, and they were looking at trying to do audiobooks. All these authors were asking, "You guys gonna do audiobooks for us? Because you have the audio rights." We're like, "Well, let's see how your book does."
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah,
It's expensive.
I mean,
It's a lot of work. Oh my goodness. The amount of time it's taking me to do the proofing for each chapter. This thing's going to be like 22, 23 hours. And I'm having to do multiple proofs of each chapter. So, I mean, it is, even from who you're paying, just the rest of the production is just a lot of work and time and money.
Is
yeah, I
the
went up
cost
cheating on
that
mine. I used a program called Positron. It finds a lot of the pronunciation mistakes.
Mm.
It's important in fantasy.
is the cost that was his name Spencer? Is that his name?
Spencer, yep.
I think he quoted it as around $6,000. I'm guessing for an average book. Does that sound about right to you guys?
It's going to depend upon
That's high.
So most of the time, audiobook narrators charge per, and it may be a little different with trad, but if you go out and you hire those same guys, what they would charge me, they charge per hour of finished audio.
Mhm.
So you can probably, as an indie, if you're an indie and you really want an audiobook, you can go out and probably find somebody that's brand new, just getting into it. You might be able to find somebody that'll charge about $50 per hour of finished mastered audio. That's the absolute like floor of somebody that is not trying to make serious money yet. They're just trying to get experience, right? Realistically, for somebody that's pretty good, 150 to 200 per hour of finished audio, up to 300 to 500 in those cases of, in the audiobook world, there are some well-known names of narrators. I know some big audiobook listeners that will look for specific narrators that they like, right? As opposed to just an author. So you're going to be talking $300 to $500 per finished hour of audio. My guy, I originally found him on Fiverr. He's in the U.S. base. He's a retired radio DJ in upstate New York, who built himself a sound booth in his. You go and you listen to his demo reels, and he's done commercials for companies you've known and stuff like that over the years. But he's got that, can do that grovelly kind of voice that fits for a sci-fi western. He would kind of be in that 150 to 200 range, except he's given me a little bit of a break because the book is so long. He's happy to have a big project, that's a big chunk at once. So he's offering a little less per finished hour. So it varies. It can vary. You can hunt around, and if you find somebody that's young and new and has some talent, you might be able to get a deal. But you're gonna have to do some shopping if you gotta have it cheap. Or if you can invest and do it yourself, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work on your voice. The equipment is one thing, but the mastering standards, if you're going to meet Audible's mastering standards, are pretty intense. So you will have to invest several $100s in equipment, probably soundproof your closet, some stuff like that, in order to meet Audible's standards.
Sure.
So this was a tangent I wasn't expecting to chase, but you can tell I've researched this in the last few months. So I do know a little bit about
royalty share, which is the way that the company I worked for tend to do most of it. I do not recommend that. You are trapped into Audible for 7 years, and half the profits go to the narrator, and then you also split the profits with the author and the company. It's very minuscule returns.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the math on that, and considering how bad the math is for Audible for the authors to begin with, they're not really upfront about what royalties authors get. And then you talk about splitting it, and it's just like, like you. I mean, I understand. I think I'd rather pay and that's the other thing too, is good narrators are not likely to take a risk on a completely unknown indie author. And so you're going to be getting the ones that are willing to take that risk are going to be those bottom of the barrel guys. You're going to have a bunch of them that are auditioning, and it's not a great choice either. It works. You might get that audiobook, but it's not going to be something you're going to make money on. for a very long time.
In the trad space, it's a bigger deal, that 7-year length of time, because let's say the author wants to leave the house. Well, we can give them their book back, but we can't give them their audiobook because we're still locked into a contract with Audible and this narrator for the remainder of that 7-year stretch of time. So it winds up being a big problem when we start talking about rights.
Ugh.
So
I've heard of a few stories of people that did manage to wiggle out from under it by contacting, Audible and going through some stuff, but it's apparently not common and it's difficult.
yeah,
I've heard it's been
narrator has to
done.
agree.
Correct. The narrator has to agree, and it might be one of those things that maybe the narrator wants, a fee or something. I don't know. How that works, but I'm sure there's some extra stuff.
No, that's really interesting. Audiobooks listened to a lot of them as a kid on car trips. We went on a lot of car trips, so I've listened to a lot in the past. So traditionally published stuff and produced, but I that's not how I consume stories now, and hasn't been for many years. I know a lot of adults. That's how they get their stories.
It is a fabulous format for someone that has a job that they can, crank through on audiobooks, or that has a long commute.
Right.
Those one summer with a previous job, working for a guy that he had a couple different small businesses, but we had this one project going and we had to make a bunch of cardboard bins. And when I say make a bunch of cardboard bins, I had a pneumatic stapler, and I spent 4 months. When I say 4 months, I spent 4 months and like 250,000 staples. I was working 4 days a week, 10 hours, and I listened to audiobooks for 10 hours a day for like 4 months,
Yikes.
Oh no, this story, Jordan says.
Yeah, but you had a killer grip, though.
Oh, yeah, it was. It was a long summer, but when you're in those situations, audiobooks are great. Which is, why I'm going to the effort of having this one made. I'm gonna see what I can do about selling it. So we'll see. It'll be a new adventure.
Have you guys seen? I don't know if it's recent or not. There was an audiobook book club sketch somebody did.
Mm-mm.
It was I don't remember if I saw it on Instagram or on YouTube, but it was like a group of people get together to discuss the book, and they're like, the only thing they're talking about is like the audio quality and the narrator, and then like the guy comes in, he's new to the book club, and it turns out he has read the actual physical book, and they're just like, what? I think it ends with them throwing him out.
I like the meme where it's just 8 hours of quiet breathing, and then at the end, it's like, oh wait, out loud.
All right, let's see. I'll put this back up.
Pros and cons of publishing that way. So let's talk about them. So first off, let's look at the key differences of what it means for each approach in kind of a boots on the ground kind of way. And I want everyone to remember, I'm just a guy on the internet who reads way too many books, honestly. And I happen to have a webcam and a microphone. I'm not an author, nor do I work in the publishing industry. So I could very well be wrong on some of my facts here. And I'm just kind of going off of what I've learned throughout the years, interviewing and talking to various authors of all kinds, both indie and traditional. So at the most basic level.
So that's kind of what you were talking about, Jeff, about how he's just kind of
outside observer.
Yeah. And there's not really any one place where he can point to for a lot of this. Oops.
Indie author is someone who is not working with a publishing house. They are doing everything and funding everything completely on their own. And this will be super, super important later. So keep that in mind. Indie authors have to find their own beta readers, and they also have to find an editor, or they have to edit the book themselves, which honestly never really goes super well. They have no deadline except for the ones that they make for themselves, and they have absolutely no help with marketing or any advertising of any kind, unless you happen to befriend a YouTuber who is happy to get the word out. Indie authors have to have a strong internet presence and do a lot of their own networking in order to get the word out about their books. But also, from what I hear, trad authors are having to do this as well, which we'll get to. On the trad side, you have to go.
Okay, so this is all stuff we know as far as indies. It's the great do-it-yourself effort.
Mm-hmm.
I think this next part is where things
go through multiple rounds of interviews. Your book may go through many hands before it ever gets picked up, and it's generally much more difficult to initially get your foot in the door. But once you're in, your publisher will generally market your book, although I have been told that in recent years there's been more pressure on the authors themselves to create a social media following and market their book a little bit more, maybe have a YouTube channel if that stuff is really beneficial. But they do get your book out to places like Barnes & Noble and other retailers, which is a huge piece of the marketing already done. There are so many indie authors that would kill to have their book in a Barnes & Noble. They'll also take care of things.
Is that marketing per se? I mean, it sounds like he was talking about distribution and not
That's
so much
distribution.
I mean, eyes on something is generally part of marketing. You know, the more people lay eyes on something, the more likely they are to buy it. So it's not marketing, but it's.
But what he's talking about,
still part of the causal chain that ends up with some people buying, right?
Getting your book into Barnes and Noble though is such a longer process than he's making it sound. It's not like trad presses have this magic, oh, we can go to Barnes and Noble and you can't thing. No, Barnes and Noble, you have to negotiate for shelf space. Like you have to know the book buyer that they're buying from. Ingram actually has a whole service where they're like, hey, Will, you talk to us and convince us to promote your book to Barnes and Noble, and maybe they'll put it on their shelves. And you got to know a guy basically to get anything there or get your book banned. That always
Michael
helps.
Kane is fresh off of
what's
anger. So
yeah, I saw that. I'm like, I feel your pain.
41 misaligned spines. Anyway, so can you tell me what you did specifically? What your job was, just so I have context? You don't have to tell me who you worked for.
Oh no, yeah.
What were you doing?
I worked as my title was marketing director.
Okay.
But I did everything.
Okay.
I did distribution. I did the negotiations. The only thing I didn't do was acquisitions, which is the part I really wanted to do because everything else would have gone great.
You could
the only thing I couldn't do was make decisions on what books I got stuck trying to market. So I did do negotiations with Ingram. I talked to them on their major distribution side. I talked to booksellers, trying to get spaces on their shelves, trying to buy end caps for a period of time, so you can get more eyes on books, which is something indies can totally do. They just don't usually know how to talk to the right people. Usually if you go to a Barnes & Noble general manager, if you really want to be in Barnes & Noble, then as long as they can buy your book from Ingram or whatever book buyer they use, it's usually Ingram. They'll usually try to work with you. It'll just take a few months down the road to get that done. But it can be viable, especially if you're doing more of a local promotion strategy where you want to hit your city, your county, whatever, and you do more like a book tour kind of thing. As long as you set that up about 6 months in advance, you can usually get that done. As long as your book looks nice. If your book looks like crap, then they're going to be like, yeah, no, indie.
But the big danger of ending up in a bookstore are returns.
Returns.
Yeah, I did. Somebody I didn't know at the time, but somebody just posted a story about basically waking up to a negative 3,000 number in Ingram because of a big return.
Yep.
And there's basically like a hold on the account until it earns out. I don't remember the specifics, but it's like
you got to pay it off.
Pay it off.
Because a bookstore having that limited shelf space doesn't want to leave books that aren't selling on the shelves. So in order to get them to even think about picking up your book, you have to check the box that says returnable. And when you hit that, if the bookstore doesn't sell them, and it's up to them when they decide they want to return them. If after a month they didn't sell them, they'll send back all 10 copies of your book that they bought. And that's a hit of about, let's see, 55%, so about maybe $10 a book if you're doing hardcovers. And that's a hit most little guys can't take.
Right.
I think the story you're talking about was actually an indie that did a bookstore placement strategy. And I don't think he thought about the returns thing.
Yeah.
So that hurts. That's a big hurt.
Frankly, I don't understand how the industry stays afloat at all. From the publishing side to the bookstore side to the
I don't know who Jonathan worked for, but for big publishers, it is basically entirely back catalog and the few A-listers that are left. Right. They make every bit of profit basically because they can continually publish Tolkien until the end of time.
Exactly.
And they know
how many
that
covers has Dune had by now?
Right. How many copies of Lord of the Rings do you have, Katie? I
bought them used, so I'm not keeping anybody.
Okay. But you still see my point, right? It's like those that keeps the entire, at least the bigger, when we talk about the bigger Tradpub, you know, smaller pub doesn't tend to own those evergreen titles like that, so they have to be a whole lot leaner and meaner.
Yeah.
If they want to stay in the black ink.
Most small presses, and I know a ton of them, are going to fail. They are not business people. They love books. And the problem with loving books is that you don't love readers. And in order to sell things, you have to love readers. So you have to give readers what they want. All right. I think Rick Partlow was... He wasn't complaining about this. He was just stating a fact of his life where, you know, he just wrote book number 79 or something like that, something crazy. And he was saying, I can only write mill sci-fi. I can only write Space Marine stuff because that's what my readers want to read. And if I want to branch out into something else, I have to put it into my mill sci-fi book because that's what the reader is going to buy. And so if you want to keep what you're doing as art, and for a guy who had written 75 books by that time, if you want to keep what you're doing as art, you got to figure out how to get it into what people are going to buy. And that's how you make a career as an author or a publisher.
Yeah.
So most small presses will fold because
you know, that's why
they're terrible at business.
You know, there was some media hubbub of a new press, you know, out recently, with supposedly some money behind it and some stuff like that. But my commentary on it was, I really, you know, it's like, it just seems like more Tradpub plus, because it seems like what you do, some press, somebody that's going to actually figure out how to crack the book industry open with a better model is not going to be an editor from an older publisher. It's not going to be a author. It's not going to be anything like that. It's going to be a numbers guy that sits in. It's going to be an Elon Musk sort of guy that sits there and goes, okay, this isn't working, but I can totally remake this industry to work, and I need some authors so I can sell their stuff. You know what I mean? It's right. Unless there's a totally different mindset of the company has to be a seller, you know. And you probably know, like I said, the mindset I'm talking about more than anything of they're the editors, they're book people, they're readers, they're not. Yeah, you know, they're not this really driven. Yeah, there was one thing, you know, and this reminds me, and I've mentioned this before. Who was it? There's some big right guy on Twitter, Mike Cernovich, you know. So I remember seeing him saying one time, and it was something that really just stuck with me. Says that if you're a creative, you need to find yourself a suit. Yep. Find a suit that has no interest in being a creative, And if that suit is your best friend, then he can sell and you can make and you guys can be successful, basically. But make sure that the suit has no ambitions of being creative themselves, because either A, they're really not as good at a suit as you think, or B, they're eventually going to try and be the creative and push you out and be bad at it, things like that. So, and really, that's really stuck with me, is that, or the example that I think of, and I know people have all sorts of opinions, but you look at the founders of Daily Wire, right? There were 3 founders. There's Ben Shapiro, who was content, who was Jeremy Boring, who's more of a business money guy, and there's the third guy who no one has ever seen on camera anywhere because he's purely like a business guy, right? And so they founded that company with serious business mentality, right? And they've clearly been successful because, well, it wasn't Ben Shapiro and Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh as the 3 co-CEOs of the company trying to guide that ship, right? They would have never gone anywhere, probably, right? Because they clearly, anyway, we're chasing rabbits again. Business people, if you're gonna found a new publisher, get a suit, get a real suit.
You need an accountant and you need an extrovert. Those are the 2 people that you need to make it.
What do you make of the? Sorry,
I just wanted to make sure that.
Sorry, we've been talking over you, Jeff.
Talk.
All right. What do you make of the claim of Spencer's claim about Tradpub helping market books?
No,
that's kind of what that's what I've heard recently.
The problem is margins. Okay, so since like 2005, when we had that huge glut of 99-cent books on Amazon, it kind of crushed the market pricing down. But you have to consider that most small presses are doing a 50% share. So 50% after costs goes to the author, and then the trad company gets the other 50%. Well, that reduces your ACOS, your cost of acquisition, acquiring a new customer, by half. So as an indie, when I sell a book for, let's say I sell a paperback for $19.99 on Amazon, I'm going to make about $4. Okay. I now have $4 to advertise with to acquire a new customer if I'm going to stay in the black. Okay. Tradpub gets 2. Okay. So they're actually less able to market than an indie is, just based on the numbers. Okay. Now, Tradpub has an advantage in that they've published way more books and they should have more experience in
and there's some things because of that should scale better. That $2 is going to scale better
newsletter,
than it should
if they grew that base correctly. But again, a lot of them aren't doing that because they love books. Romance imprints tend to do way better because the readership is a binge readership, and honestly, they don't really care what they're reading. They're just reading their book.
Although that's probably going to tank soon. Just with
we'll see. AI romance is going to be fun to read.
It's going to be the easiest market to create passable product, and because it is so pattern and trope dependent, that it will become passable first in romance.
But even before AI is writing passable stories, it's going to be translating a whole bunch of like fan fiction from China, stuff like that. We've seen some of it hit bookshelves in Barnes and Noble already, right? Like,
I can't wait to see Skynet Love. It's going to be great. I can't wait to see that burn. But yet the problem traditional publishers have is they don't have the money. Okay, and a lot of times they've been cutting costs by cutting people. So now you have people who are doing 5 jobs when I was brought on to do 1 job. So instead of focusing on growing my authors' brands and growing and educating them and telling them how to become successful in this marketplace, I was stuck doing logistics. And that sucks up a lot of time in the day. I don't know if you've ever dealt with Ingram's customer service. It will suck up your day.
Don't tell me that, please. That's tomorrow.
Michael, I'm sorry, man. It's going to be bad.
I used to do extended warrant, calling warranty companies to get them to pay for stuff that I used to work at an auto place, and I was the warranty person who would call to make the warranty company pay for work we'd already done. Yeah, those were. I would sit on hold for ages.
I don't know what's going on in the chat with Patrick, but I don't really want to know.
Huh. Amish wife.
This is what happens when his camera's not on, Katie.
Yeah.
I'm seeing
that's
something
what
about
I wanna
Fabio
see is,
in
like,
there.
Kyle Reese going through and destroying the true monster of AI, which is creating this crap. I'm sorry, I just need to shotgun this.
Yeah,
Most Tradpubs will leave the author out to dry. They'll be like, you need to go and pound the pavement. You need to market and promote.
Right.
And if you don't, we won't pick up your second book, but we also won't give you the rights to your first book back.
Oh, man.
Unless you are that A-lister, and then they will market the heck out of you because that's their only thing that they know that they can bring money on is that A-lister or that back catalog.
Yeah,
Freedom distribution.
They are
1%
entirely
of authors.
Right.
They will pay advances to people who already have a large following. They already have some level of fame. Either they're celebrities or they're internet people with a lot of viewers. And then they'll market it because they're marketing themselves.
I say it on Twitter fairly regularly, but the most reliable way to sell books is to be famous. You won't get famous by writing books. So if you want to sell books, you try and get famous somehow. Now, the good thing is
in the Super Bowl, throw a shoe at George Bush.
Right. Now the good thing is, and the thing that I say is that with the internet, that fame can be very niche. Right? It can be relatively confined. You don't have to be a household name. If I found 10,000 dedicated fans, which I believe are out there or within my reach of social media, right? Technically speaking, I would be doing quite well. It's just it's that trick of getting there. It's like, so it can be done. It's just very difficult, obviously, because again, you're not going to get famous for your books.
You might. You'll probably be
You
dead.
might. You might, but it's just really not
Dying
likely.
is a good way. It depends on how you die. Or faking your own death. And I don't know many people who've tried that route.
There's a lot of famous authors. Most of them became famous after they died.
Yeah.
It just isn't a very viable living.
In 2025. Well,
you can't
think about this though.
Living as an author.
think about this. Think about this though, and this is something really important. So when did Harry Potter first get published? Katie, that's more your field. What's the year?
Oh,
98,
When did the
99.
Baptists start yelling about this? Those were the 90s.
Yeah, late 90s. So J.K. Rowling,
I think it was like 90.
Is really the last superstar author to come on the scene. Would you guys agree with that? There are other big authors to come afterwards. You get what's her name with Twilight and 50 Shades and some stuff like that. Stephanie Myers, right? But Stephanie Myers can't hold a candle to J.K. Rowling, right? Or Stephen King or Grisham or a bunch of these people. Right. So J.K. Rowling is the last superstar author. How many?
Big, but I think you're right. Not as big as Rowling. The problem is Rowling keeps getting. She goes into the feminist issue a lot, and because everything in the world keeps touching on feminism somehow.
Oh, right.
People keep buying her books to burn them, so she keeps making money.
But seriously, my point. My point is that the nature of publishing has changed such that they have, despite their reliance on the mega whale of whales, the industry has been unable to reproduce something on the scale of Harry Potter or J.K. Rowling. And we're now pushing 30 years since that happened. Right? So look at how long it's been since they've actually produced a true superstar whose books are going to be published for a very long time. I mean, there's other ones that approach household name to some lower extent. Who, yeah, looks like I was about to say Hunger Games, but offhand I can't even remember her name. It's
Suzanne Collin. That's wrong.
is that no? That I know that name, but that's not. But you see my point. You see the exact point I'm talking about is that the industry doesn't even know how to.
Yep.
Sanderson is post rolling, but so Apollyon Bob, that's a great screen name. Let me
Yeah, but not by us. It's like 10 years. So
hold up.
If George R. R. Martin ever wrote anything again, maybe.
Okay.
That man is not going to write anything.
So, Apollyon Bob, and I just asked Grok because I'm not doing research on the fly right here, so there's no telling how far off this is.
That guy.
Yeah, I'm going to be that guy real quick here, just because that's going to be faster than me going somewhere and adding it all up. But the estimate is Brandon Sanderson has sold 40 million books, which is a really lot. J.K. Rowling is something like 600 million, like total books. Like J.K. Rowling's total across titles is obscene.
Yeah.
Right. We're talking Brandon Sanderson, while very famous in his pond, is in a much, much smaller pond than J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, she wrote for boys, but somehow got plugged into like every other demographic after that. Then everyone grew up still loving it, gave it to their kids because they're like, oh, my kids should read. Oh, okay. This is what I read when I was a kid. Oh, hey, Sam's Club has the whole set.
Right.
You know, it's she actually hit fantastic stuff. I love studying her because her digital rights clause is killer. She was like the first one to get it, and man, it paid off.
Patrick's about to make a fantasy as the lesser sci-fi joke. I'm ahead of you, man. I know you too well. So what's special about her digital rights clause? Like, is it just like the percentage?
She owns her ebooks.
Oh, she's like George Lucas in toys.
Yes, she owns her ebooks, which is how she got super rich. Well, her publisher didn't think this was gonna. They didn't think this book was gonna work out. That's why they changed her name to J.K. Rowling, as they didn't think little boys would read anything written by a girl.
By what was it, Joan? Is she Joan?
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, she has her digital right because nobody respected ebooks back then.
Okay,
nobody respected them. They thought it was going to die out as a format.
Right, like so it's like
die out as a format.
Yeah,
because J.K. Rowling's like that old school feminist. She kind of annoys me sometimes. I'm like, oh. Yeah, and other times I'm like, yeah, you go, girl, right? When she's annoying the modern wave of feminists. So I have a strong respect for her, right? But you telling me about that digital rights, my respect level just goes.
It's incredible. It's so unreal. I'm like, what idiot is still slamming his head into his bed going, no.
Doug Wise points out that Rowling is like her own thing.
Right.
Shouldn't be comparing her.
So lightning strikes are lightning strikes, right? But there are conditions that create lightning strikes. And it's your capacity to gather those things. I mean, fate plays a lot into it. I mean, so obviously for her, a lot of conditions came together all at the same time.
There's a lot of luck. There is luck that happens. Right, there is luck that happens in publishing. You have to do things right and be ready to make use of that. And but it's like the market was perfectly ready for exactly what she was publishing. Right, that you can say that. Well, she got lucky that she published at the right time. Yes, but she was still publishing it. She still did the right thing.
Right. Yep. You can't make the lightning strike happen, but you can make the conditions and just keep writing, keep doing the right thing, and keep making the conditions happen. And, maybe you'll get your lightning strike.
It's hard to say whether or not the conditions are
Or you'll die
aren't
sad and
possible
poor.
anymore.
Right. I don't know with how fragmented the industry and marketing is. I don't know that the conditions are right for rolling anytime in the next foreseeable future, right? It's
Well,
like the
people
conditions
don't-
are.
Sorry, I didn't mean.
Go ahead.
I was just
No,
going
go
to say
ahead.
people don't read as much. I think part of it was part of rallying. One of the conditions was the rise of the internet, and people just not reading quite so often.
Well,
She also was benefited by negative publicity because
Yep.
several conservative denominations from everywhere outright banned her books as witchcraft, which creates a draw and an appeal to them from the other side. And
It's like
everybody knew they hated the Baptists.
Well, it's like
So-
you look at the indies that were directly involved in the contest blow up last month.
Yeah.
Right. And even those of us that weren't involved and still had some, commentary. I had a really good February, right? Because I had actually considered tossing my entry in. And I am really mad at myself that I was like, because I was like, I know they had a little bit of drama the year before, so I was like, nah, I shouldn't do that. That's just not worth it.
Man,
Mistakes made.
I was like, I write
Mistakes
fantasy.
made.
I can't even get.
But
into it.
but those people that were directly involved and said, nah, I'm gonna pull out of this and got rewarded. Good for them. That's a little bit of that indie lightning there. Good for them. Couple of good people I was friends with on Twitter, even one that wasn't, like EJ Fish, who wasn't involved at all, but had another incident happen at the same time where she got kicked out of a book funnel promo group.
Oh, that one.
And people were already kind of online thinking about the cancellation stuff.
They were already mad.
So they were like, darn it, we're going to buy her book too. So she had a killer month.
You can learn this from watching Trump and politics, okay? Hatred sells.
It can. Yep.
It's a definite factor. And so if you can ride that wave, cool.
I think as long as we're talking about this and we're already so far down this rabbit trail, one of the things about Rolling is that she was writing to a very specific demographic who were all reading it at the same time and who all gathered in the same place every day to talk about it.
Yep.
I think that sense of like community is something that a lot of readers remember from when they were kids reading Harry Potter and want that again. And it's hard to replicate that.
Right.
Well, what you're looking for is a concept called resonance, right? And the word that our culture uses that I hate with all of my soul is vibe. When everybody is reading the same thing at the same time, or all the cool kids are, and you want to be a cool kid, you go and do what the cool kids are doing. That's how fashion trends become a thing. That's how your pants don't go on your waist in the 90s, or how you skinny jeans in 2010 or whatever. Everybody is doing it, or the people you want to be like are doing it. And so when we're looking at stories that resonate, so for instance, The Mandalorian came out around COVID. Now, The Mandalorian was already boosted by the fact that IG-88 was in the trailer, and everyone who loved the EU loved that part. Okay? But what was The Mandalorian about? It was about a broken family, or a new family being made from pieces. And this is in 2020, in COVID, when everyone was isolated. And what came out right after that? The Witcher, which was the same exact thing. They were creating a family out of broken pieces. So you have these stories that resonate, and you had a couple other good factors, like Henry Cavill is passionate about the project, and so everyone loves Henry Cavill. And so everyone, they have enough to hang on to that they get really passionate about. I couldn't go anywhere for like 3 years without hearing "This is the way." Because everybody was watching it. There were people who got Disney Plus just to watch that show. And so,
like my mother-in-law does not like sci-fi, says she doesn't like Star Wars, but she loves The Mandalorian.
because it's a Western, basically, with laser guns.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Um,
It's specifically, it's a spaghetti Western. Like, it's an even specific subgenre, you know.
oh man, I hated that about the Book of Boba Fett, but that's a different rabbit trail. But the point of resonance is that this was a story people needed at the time. Everyone was hurting from the same thing, which was enforced isolation, and they wanted this sense of connection. So this is a story that really reached out to them. On the other hand, the Michael Crichton type stories where super viruses get released into the world cratered. Those sales died because no one wanted to read it in COVID. It doesn't mean they were bad books. It meant nobody wanted to read them. So looking for what your world needs and having that resonate with enough people. If you want that lightning strike to happen where it blows up and goes all over the world, you have to hit everyone's pain point at the same time. And it's just so unlikely that's going to happen.
But indies are a lot better equipped at this point to react to those.
It's true.
Because they're happening
faster.
so fast now. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like, Tradpub is not ready at all for a very long time afterwards, even to release anything that would have appealed to people during COVID.
Right.
It just didn't have things. It didn't have the capability of getting things to the point where they could serve people that ahead of time.
Because what you're looking at to write a book between 3 to 6 months, 2 to 3 if you're super professional and ultra disciplined and you don't have children. You're looking at 6 months to produce a book. Then you're looking at 3 months of negotiations, and that's if your manuscript gets accepted immediately by whoever you send it to. And then you're looking at the company itself doing 3 months of negotiations because the person in acquisitions only checks their email once every 10 days. Or they lose it, or they don't know how to use email. And it gets lost. There's back and forth. You got agents involved sometimes, and they want to be CC'd on everything, and they'll hang things up because they're trying to defend their client or what. And so it adds this timeline onto an acquisition of a trad book. And then we're talking about distribution. They want a 6-month runway. Because when I acquire a book and I pay out $5,000 advance, I got to make $5,000. So now I have to do the work to make sure that the world is ready to receive it. I'm going to put it on NetGalley. I'm going to go out to, talk to Ingram. I'm going to talk to Barnes & Noble, try to get placements. And, all this stuff has to happen. It has to happen 6 months in advance. And we're not even talking about scheduling podcasts, which normally you have to schedule 3 to 4 months out in advance because they're all full. So trying to get the slots and everything going in a Tradpub context, whereas if I'm the indie, I can be setting people up to receive this book while I'm writing the book. Mm-hmm. There's no acceptance process. I just cut 8 months out of this whole shebang. So indies are way more agile and way more able to read what the culture is doing and at least catch the tail end of it, Now's a good time for Russia to be the bad guy again, like all of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. People are kind of ready for it.
Yeah.
Or you could be me, who writes a big series where the backstory is benevolent AI basically makes people lose all of their STEM and artistic whatnot. And when the AI goes away, society goes into steep decline. And you start that back in 2018, but since you're bad at marketing, you have no idea how to capitalize on that. Now that everybody's going, maybe we shouldn't actually give away all of our intellectual capabilities to AI.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's a problem.
I think the problem is that not everybody is saying that.
Well, I think there's enough realizing that. I think you're going to start realizing pretty quickly that there's good uses for this stuff and there's very counterproductive uses.
Oh yeah, absolutely, totally agree.
It's like the one thing that I discovered over the last couple of weeks as I'm setting up my Shopify store to sell directly, which should be pretty soon, hopefully, is that it is significantly easier and faster for me to ask Grok to look through Shopify's help documents and give me an answer than it is to look through Shopify's documents.
Oh
which
my
is
gosh,
a weird
make
problem.
sure it's looking at the right patch notes.
Well, sure, and I've had a couple places where it's like, that's not there. Look again. Oh, you're right. This is right there. You know,
Yeah.
but and that creates this really weird, interesting problem because without the original documents that someone's having to write, Grok can't do that at all because Grok isn't intelligent in any way. Grok can't look through Shopify and actually help me, you know, like that. So there's this weird thing where it's like these help documents, you know, Grok is basically a better search engine for those help documents than Shopify can create. Which is a really strange situation, but it's true. I mean, it's just
I use it to
better.
recode. I use it to recode the buy button on Shopify because I hate the buy with Shop Pay button. And so I had ChatGPT give me the code sequence I needed to plug into the HTML to change the buy button.
I might be DM you about how that works.
Yeah, I'll hit you up after. But yeah, I've been working direct sales since October, because you know it looks like Amazon. Especially with what they just did with the ebook rights.
The ebooks,
like
yeah. I'd already started everything. I'd already started that, and then that hit. I was like, "Oh, I am doing this at the right time."
So I've been divested from Amazon for a while. I still have my stuff on there, but it's not my sole outlet. And the numbers are just better on Shopify. I sell a 2-book bundle on Shopify, and it's my book cost shipping, which I charge the customer because, as it turns out, customers don't really care about paying shipping.
Yep. Especially because
especially on fantasy books. It's specific to sci-fi and fantasy because
books are really cheap to ship too because of media mail.
Yes, media mail. So I'm actually making about $25 on 2 books, whereas if I sell them on Amazon, I make $8.
Jeez.
And I make it 2 months down the road as opposed to a week down the road.
Yeah. Who produces your books? Is it through Ingram or?
I'm moving to Book Vault.
Okay.
I'm gonna do and I've been talking to Michael about this on
yeah, we had this conversation on Twitter earlier today. Go ahead. I'll tell you where I'm at if you're curious too. But go ahead, John.
I saw it. Yeah.
I'm doing my regular print orders through US Book Vault, but I'm going to do my special edition Kickstarters through UK Book Vault. And
pay that little bit of extra options shipping for the UK.
Yeah. Because I mean, on Kickstarter, for a special edition, I can charge $100. And, you know, I frequently have between 15 and 20 people on my very small Kickstarters, 15 to 20 people paying $100 a book. So I want to give them a beautiful book. And with that kind of margin, I can totally afford to get something absolutely gorgeous, make it an event and then the celebration of this book's release and give them something wonderful. And when people see it, they're like, where did you get that? Well, I'm on John's newsletter.
So, we'll talk. Well, I need to talk to you later because I'm going to be doing some similar. I'm going to be doing some similar stuff when I'm releasing my final book, releasing the audio for the first book at the same time as the 6th book of the series, and so I'll be doing some special stuff like that. And yeah, I'll have some questions for you.
Yeah,
I'll have some questions. But yeah, but what you're doing there is what. You know, something that I think a lot of indies need to think about, and this is something I've been working towards with selling for myself, is if you want to make money, and again, I know Katie is the champion of, she's that way. Katie is the champion, one of the champions of the hobbyists, and the hobbyists are great, and that is perfectly fine for the people that just want to sell, right? But if you want to make more money, don't leave money sitting on the table that's there if you just do the extra work to get it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm just going to experiment with some random small merch options, you know, on Shopify. Yeah, I posted a picture in the Discord. Katie just saw that mug that I put out. But there's, you know, the main character of my story, he's this Clint Eastwood kind of, wandering gunman character with a heart of gold, right? Only he goes into bars and he orders a cherry soda is one of the key character things. And part of why he does that is the thing. Well, I'm going to have these drinking glasses available with this red spot soda logo, that's got Jupiter and all this. And I'm just going to throw it up there to see. It's like for readers that have read through the series and know that's a key part of the character. Do you want this drinking glass that has Matthew Cole's favorite brand of soda? Right? Why not?
If you do drop shipping, it doesn't even cost you anything.
Exactly. It's going to be a print on demand. It's going to be a print on demand thing. I'm not going to ever touch it. So it took me 3 or 4 hours working on this logo and really kind of honing it into being really what I wanted. Just work in Photoshop. And it's like, well, if I'll make about $6 on that if somebody wants it, and maybe they will. But that's that idea is if there's things I think that indies can do with stuff in this internet age that you don't have to have you don't have to do a bunch, like you're talking about those book vault bespoke editions that are really expensive, stuff like that I think is really interesting, because you don't know if you have some really wealthy people basically that have disposable income that might just say, well, yeah, I'll pay for that. Yeah, that's cool. I like this guy. I like what he's doing. Yeah, I'll pay for that cool edition.
Yeah. So I've gone and sold at Comic-Cons, and the item I would advise most indie authors to get into, especially if they're low budget, is stickers. Stickers are one of the most low cost things you can do, but they're permanent because my kids stick them everywhere. And I see that sticker all the time. So that's constant re-engagement with the brand or the idea. Okay. And that's
what
called
do you charge for a sticker?
It depends on what you're doing. So really the design of the sticker is what's expensive, but it's like 20 cents a sheet.
Yeah,
are you printing them yourself?
You can. So I am not. I don't do stickers because I'm writing Noble Dark. My crowd isn't the sticker crowd.
Are you saying that your ex-Marines you're writing for are not into stickers?
Sadly, some of them are. Wait till we talk about the Marine bronies. That's a weird.
I was not going to bring up the word brony, but I was thinking it.
Not on the schedule for today.
With a little plastic horse whose hair he combs. It's weird.
Anyway, Red Spot Soda Company. Yep, I'm gonna try and do it as a sticker too. It's got Jupiter back there. Red Spot Soda Company. It's been about 4 hours working on that, but
and that's just for people that are in the know, which is even better.
Exactly.
Okay, so I have a Dr. Pepper shirt. David has like Mountain Dew. I want this on a t-shirt.
Which is easy to do too, because once the logo is designed,
give me 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Give me 5 minutes and I'll give you a mock-up.
T-shirt, bookmark. Line them up.
But that's what I'm just gonna experiment with a few of these things and see, what happens.
But it's people who are in the know, because if someone who has read the book sees someone with the red spot mug, shirt, bag, sticker, whatever, that is what's going to cause that because now you have a community forming. Okay. Oh, you like what I like. I thought I was alone in the world. I thought I was just weird. Okay. It's like whenever I find another 40K nerd. Okay. We immediately start fangirling over whatever it is that we're excited about. Stickers are great for that because they're low cost and you can put them everywhere. I mean, you can give them out for free. You can make them part of a giveaway. They're great Kickstarter add-ons. And I mean, my Dutch Brothers. Do you guys know what Dutch Brothers is? It's a drive-through coffee place here in the Southwest. Dutch Brothers does stickers, but they change them out monthly.
Nice.
And so whenever my kids, which are 9, 7, 4, and 2, hear that Dutch Brothers has new stickers, they're like, Daddy, go to Dutch Brothers. And Dutch Brothers is making another $16 off of drinks because my kids want the new stickers.
Nice. I have a few stickers that people have sent me with the books, and some other stickers that I've bought.
What's her name? There's a she used to be Tradpub. She's indie now. She writes sci-fi. She's a little older. She got like 40-something books. She does stickers. She does separate Kickstarters just for her stickers because she does art too. What's her name?
I should know this because I bought stickers from her.
You bought stickers from her, and you know what I'm talking about. Does her last name start with an H?
Her branding is working.
Yeah. MCA Hogarth.
Yes.
Yeah. She does separate Kickstarters just for stickers. Stickers.
That's amazing. That's great.
I'll run and grab
I told her recently that she is somebody because I told MCA Hogarth recently that she's somebody that I just quietly lurk and watch and learn from because she's like well ahead, but a lot of the things she's doing are actually things I could do. You know, it's not like she's like scaled so far ahead that I couldn't ever do it.
This is my envelope. I ordered stickers and it came in this just a regular envelope with a card of her art, little handwritten note, thanks, enjoy. And then this is the sticker that I wanted to buy, right? This little
it's a cat with a book.
Yeah. But then like I got like a whole bunch of other ones because I was buying some, you know. So yeah,
but all this falls into the strategy of retargeting, maintaining engagement, which a lot of authors rely on social media for. But when this is like the billboard kind of idea where it's always in the sky on your commute and you're always getting refreshed on it. And so if your sticker is designed well enough, someone's always being re-engaged with it. I mean, if you can get people to get tattoos of your book, I mean,
I don't know how I would feel about that. I'm not
no one cares about your feelings. We're talking about
right?
money.
You're ex-military, right? So the tattoo, you're like, yeah, let's get people to make tattoos. I don't know what I think about.
It's important enough to someone to get a tattoo of it. I know guys who got like the Imperial Aquila from 40K on their arm, or blood from the blood god, or whatever. And it's like, man, dude, it's just a drawing. Calm down, son.
So Jeff had to go. So thank you again to him for joining us. I really appreciate him participating. And
I think Jonathan and I were too enthusiastic and like talked over him.
We're talking about my jam. I mean, I was a targeting guy in the Marine Corps. I found ISIS, and so now delivering books to people it's still in my wheelhouse. I just don't have access to those databases anymore.
It's I know that I start late for a lot of people, so if people have to drop off, I understand.
Oh, there you go. Look at that.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
It would only do the mock-up in white unless I went further into it, but
as long as you're drop shipping, you're good, because trying to store this crap in your house, if it doesn't sell,
I'm only willing to basically store the books. I think I'm going to have the books here because I want to sign stuff like that. Maybe some other stuff, but we'll see. Sticker type stuff. Yeah, that's too.
But this is what indies can do. Is that indies have access to all this stuff because all of it is being automated. You got screen printing has been automated. Drop shipping has been automated because of the whole Etsy craze. We have so many options available to us, and we can just look for what people want. I know someone who makes jewelry because her books fit that. She writes Regency thrillers. She writes Mission Impossible mixed with the Victorian era. So espionage and tea parties. And she has so much stuff that she can do that's available to her on that. I helped her with her Kickstarter a couple months ago. Just did a whole bunch of ideas, but indies have that freedom, and in trad you just don't have it. The options just aren't there because your ACOS is is so low. I mean, you don't have the funds. You know, when I'm making $2 a book, how on earth, you know, it takes how many clicks on Amazon ads to get somebody to buy your book? If your ad is good, it's 1 in 6.
Right.
And when your click costs 40 cents or 35 cents, times that by 6, I'm already blown past $2.
Amazon's ad environment is basically a hellscape at this point.
Oh, it's awful. It's awful.
It is
saturated, and it's terrible.
It is a full-on hellscape at this point. And if you
Thank you, Brian Cohen.
If you came from a data science background and had a lot of money to experiment, maybe give it a shot. Maybe if that's like really your jam. But unless that is like actually like you are a like specialize in that, no, stay away.
So I was coming out of the Marine Corps and I was studying all this stuff.
You know,
I was studying my new target environment, and I was like, okay, how are authors doing this? Because the money just isn't there. And I went and I looked something up. Over half of all successful authors have rich spouses.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. I don't know if you've do you know Yuval Kordov on Twitter? He writes it's Dark Legacies. It's got mechs on the cover. He describes it as
I know Dark Legacies.
Old Testament Gothic. Yeah. He's done some pretty extensive experimentation on several different platforms and done some good write-ups about it. And documented the ones that was like, yep, this will lose your money basically every time. This will, and he will still say that big BookBub ads still work because that it's still a little more contained environment of just books and people there for books.
Yeah.
So he says that they can still be done, but yeah, he's got some good write-ups on it because he was totally willing to throw the cash, do the experiment, you know. So it's worth reading about.
I mean, meta ads right now are okay on a per click basis. X, it looks like it has some promise because X still lets you reach your followers. So these are the experiments I'm running right now in conjunction with the direct sales thing. But these are also experiments I get to run because I am the publisher. You know, if I decided I wanted to switch stores and go to something else and run my ads somewhere else, I can do that. I can run 99-cent promotions. I can do the based book sale. I can ride the wave of Devin Erickson getting kicked out of a competition he didn't even know he was in. You know, I can, I can do all this stuff because I have the freedom.
Yeah.
And it just takes know-how and it takes confidence. You know, you gotta have a brashness to be willing to get out there and lose some money.
So this is basically turned into an indie marketing thing. That was totally not
not my intention.
But
I feel like it's highlighting.
It does highlight. Yeah, it highlights some of the. Look, it's a positive and a negative. In some ways, it is a negative too, because as you hear people, some writers just want to write, and that's very true. And there are some writers that, 5 years ago, I would have said I was that guy until really the last year and a half when I finally started figuring out how to have some purchase and go from having a couple of sales a month to having a dozen sales a month to having a few dozen sales a month. It's kind of, I sell a few dozen books a month, and it feels good. And when you start going, some of these things actually work, you go from going, I'd like it to work more. Can I make it work more? And really, you can. It's a lot of work, but you can make it work. It can be done. It can be done. That's the thing. And another benefit of indie is it can be done in a way which is quite specific to the writer's talents and tastes and personality, right? And that doesn't necessarily come through in the same way. I'll tell you something else I'm going to sell here in just a few weeks. I'm going to find it. You can talk for a second. Give me
Sure. Well, not to. I know I don't want to just bash trad the whole time, even though I would happily do that because I am very much indie after working in trad more so. But one thing that's nice about trad is someone can send me their book and I can tell them, no, you need to work on this some more. I can give them feedback, be like, you know what, man, you're not ready. And if we put this book out for you right now, it would destroy your career because no one's going to buy book 2 based off of this book 1. So what we need to do is we need to get your book 1 better. Okay. I love your concept. I can see the marketing paths that I would take to throw it out there. I can already see the cover I would slap on it, but this is not ready to go out. It is not delighting a reader. Your hook is terrible. Your ending doesn't drive people up the wall to get to the next book. We need to work on these things. And you can't use this word in your book anymore, dude.
And I think Spencer talked about that a little bit in the video later. Just kind of about if you're trying to do everything yourself, sometimes you're not able to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yep. And indies, well, trad does this as well. It's a problem on both sides. They get stuck in an echo chamber. They get stuck in a feedback loop. In the Intel community, we called it a feedback loop, where you're listening to the wrong people talk. And so instead of listening to bad guys, you're listening to people talk about bad guys, and that's not a good enough source. So like there's a ton of X reviewers, right? They're all on X and they're all putting out their opinions and stuff like that. And their opinions may not be very good, but when a book is trendy, people tend to jump onto it and support it even if it's bad. I'm not going to name this book or this author, but there was one that came out a few years ago. And I actually messaged this guy and I'm like, you need to fix some stuff in your book. You made some serious mistakes. But he was getting rave reviews on X. All the reviewers are coming back to him and saying, this is amazing. Everyone was pushing it. It was in all the contests. It was on all the contest billboards and everything. But the book itself was bad. It made several critical mistakes that you can't do with heroes on a hero's journey because readers aren't X reviewers. Readers are not in this culture that we've created on social media where we plug our books into it. And you think the buzz coming back to you from social media is results. And it's not. Nobody bought book 2. And for 6 months, this guy was depressed, trying to figure out why nobody liked his books anymore.
Since this is sort of related, I will throw this up. And
Now, this freedom that indie authors have is a double-edged sword, and this kind of plays into my third reason for not reading as much indie lately. When you are trad published, there is a good amount of quality control. Your publisher will make sure that your book is meeting certain standards. They will use an expert team of editors and beta readers to make sure that the story is engaging and will appeal to your audience, and then they will make sure that you have some sort of outline for however many books that they've signed you on for. And I will say, this does not automatically make trad books better quality than indie. There are some absolutely shitty trad published books, and I don't think anyone would deny that. I made a whole video titled, How the Fuck Did Fourth Wing Get Published? Go check it out. I'll leave it in the annotations up above. But my point is, there can absolutely be swings and misses with trad publishing, but on average, as a customer and as a reader, you generally know that these books have gone through several layers of quality control. The part that appeals to me the most is that the publisher usually makes sure that the author has a plan.
Okay, he's going to go into...
It's interesting because it's like, in theory, that is how Tradpub should be functioning, right? It's like,
Right.
But Jonathan down there is going.
Editors are.
Yeah. In theory, some of that should be happening, right? That is
Right.
that is what you would think the industry should be indeed doing. But I mean, you're right. Go ahead, Jonathan. Tell your story.
Yeah, in my case, it was the acquisitions editors who were also the editors, which was a problem because they would fall in love with a book and they would not hammer it the way it needed to be hammered. They wouldn't look at it critically enough to make it what it needed to be. So
Okay.
they made me put out a lot of failures. Okay. You know how like sugar is supposed to be baked into cookies and not sprinkled on top when they're done baking? Okay. I had to sprinkle marketing on crap and try to make that appealing. Okay. That's not how this works. Those cookies suck. And when, I mean, he's saying they have an expert team of beta readers and editor. Yeah, right. An editor is so expensive. Most of the time, it's someone who works at the company and they take their off time and they do the editing. And if they've been in it for a while, then they're going to be pretty good because they've been doing it for 40 years. Okay. But the people who are all good at grammar are dying. They're 80. Our school system hasn't exactly been great at this. Okay. So all the people who even know how to proofread. Okay. And you know, Grammarly, I use Pro Writing Aid. Pro Writing Aid is great. It catches a lot of mistakes. It does a lot of good things, but it's not great at fantasy. Okay. There's a lot of made up words in there that it just doesn't know what to deal with, or weird sentence structures, or it gives you its preachy idea of this sounds a little misogynistic. You shouldn't. Like, I'm like,
I know the character is a misogyn. You know,
it's like if the paperclip from the 90s was like, I don't know.
Did you get a credit for Pro Writing Aid to do the manuscript analysis? Okay, so they have Pro Writing Aid has this new AI, like AI manuscript analysis that it's like a $35 credit to run your whole manuscript through. But because I have like
$5.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I know. I did a whole big old write up because I've got I bought a lifetime on subscription on like a Black Friday sale. They gave me a credit. And so I had a credit, and so I ran my book through it, and I did a big write-up review, and it was really interesting because there were things that it was really pretty good at. It understood a lot of big picture things, but it hilariously missed some very obvious small subtextual things. Yeah, you know, which was really interesting. But I did my whole write-up, and Pro Writing Aid actually responded to me on Twitter and said they were passing my feedback along to the team, you know, because it was detailed, like it was a long tweet chain and with screenshots and stuff. But so the there was the most interesting thing was a list of primary characters, and it was a long list. It was like 20 something characters listed here. It had basically their percentage of time within the book. Right, like basically how much screen time did they get, right? Sure. But then also like their roles within the story. So, for instance, there's a wise old mentor, a Catholic bishop that comes into play late in the story and after Moses, and you know it pegged him as being what did they list it? Something like the sage or something like that. And so it was doing a good job of actually figuring out characters' roles within the story structure, and that was kind of interesting. But the only thing that was actually useful was there was a list of comparables of comps, you know, because those are the writers hate trying to come up with comps.
Oh yeah, yep.
Right, we hate it with passion, and that was one thing I said. Is like,
I'm unique.
If you gave me a list of like a huge list of comparables, you would have writers paid like $10 for a list of comps if it was like actually good. So it was interesting, but it was more AI stuff. So there was plenty of stuff. I was like, well, that's hilariously wrong. That's not. Or a 7-year-old
was designing several AI tools that would do stuff like this for authors. And he had me test one of my stories on it, and the story hasn't been published yet, so it wasn't like it could even be polluted by, there's already opinions out there on it. Sure. When it goes searching. So I ran my Einherjar story through it, which is like a Viking origin story of one of my characters. The prologue takes place in present day in my novel series, but the entire thing's an origin story. Well, this AI could not figure that out. I kept feeding it through it, and it kept thinking that this was part of the story because it couldn't handle the time differential. So I just removed the prologue and ran it through it. It also can't handle unreliable narrators. So when you have a POV that doesn't have all the information to the story, the AI trusts everything. It can't figure out how to rank what is true and what isn't because it lacks that sensibility. So yeah, these manuscript analysis stuff, it would probably work on like Shallow.
But for like a real adult novel, we're a few years out easily.
Yeah.
One of the funny things in mine that it just did not understand, and I don't think I posted this screenshot. So there's a character that she is in like this 7-foot mech suit. She spends all her time in it, right? And so her height is described sometime. But there's a few, very, very rarely she's out of that because, minor spoiler, I don't mind because it's fairly early. She's actually paraplegic. Okay. So she's not a tall woman and she has shriveled legs from an injury as a teenager. The AI didn't understand why sometimes she was tall and sometimes she wasn't. And it had this as listed as severe concern. Which is like, that's not a subtle kind of detail, you know. So it was funny that it picked up on like structural like roles within stories of characters and the kind of role that they played, but then just completely missed some of the most brain dead obvious things.
That's such a case for lived experience being the most important part of understanding a story, of coming to a story. I understand a paraplegic can change height.
Right.
Okay, because I've seen it. You know, I've been taught that, and a computer, no matter how well you program it, there's always something that's going to come up. That's going to be like, I don't know, I've never seen this. Why do humans change? You know, what has 4 legs and also 2 legs and sometimes 3 legs? You know, the computer's going to be like, ah!
Well, the computer only knows what you tell it. Like,
right.
And that's part of, like, David's talked about it in the context of AI art, right? Like, when people argue, well, it's making art the same way that a human does, right? Like a human can take inspiration from other artists and stuff. Well, kind of, but like you haven't just seen pictures of chairs. You've seen chairs, right?
Yeah.
You haven't just seen other people's illustrations of chairs. You have seen, interacted, touched chairs. Mm-hmm. The computer has no context outside of a picture with a text label. Like that is it.
Right.
And that's
which means it will.
Thing. I mean,
sorry, say again.
Who do you want to talk?
No, go ahead, Jonathan. Go ahead.
Sorry, what were you saying, Jonathan?
So I was an Arabic cultural expert when I was doing the war in Iraq. Okay, and I had a first sergeant who was infantry. He's like, yeah, you know, we got these Iraqi guys in the Second Gulf War. And, you know, when we got them, we shaved their beards off, we shaved their heads off, and these guys were so mad all the time. And I'm like, do you understand Muslim apocalyptic literature at all? It literally says the foreigners will come and shave off your hair and your beards. Like, it says this explicitly. Okay, he's like, oh, it would have been good to have one of you. We're all of us linguists are sitting there like, you did what? There's no wonder they hate us. But, you know, this first sergeant doesn't have the experience of being around Muslim apocalyptic literature. He doesn't understand what the beard means in Islamic society. You know, you just don't have that context. And so you can't, you know, when you come to a story, you bring a context with it, which is why people misunderstand things so much. Like, I write things about Marine Corps culture all the time, but nobody has any idea what I'm talking about. Okay. One of our favorite things to say is kill babies. Okay, that means like a strong yes. If I was going to translate it, okay, they're like, "Hey man, look what I did! Oh, cool, kill babies." You know, there's no civilian that understands this whatsoever if they have not been provided the cultural context as to where that comes from.
Hmm.
All right, and AI doesn't have this.
About literally anything.
Anything. It doesn't have any experience other than what has been placed into it.
And largely that's why what we're have right now, technology wise, AI is almost a misnomer, because it is simply a pattern recognition and pattern recreation system, right? Which is why it does a fabulous job of pulling help guides from Shopify and regurgitating it in a more useful format for me, which is why it can recreate patterns of art and sometimes can do so in an aesthetically pleasing fashion, right? But again, it doesn't understand what kill babies means in that context, right? There's not a system of meanings behind it.
I'd get a warning message from it.
Right, exactly. Which is why, again, it's like
I'm probably gonna get flagged. Just
on probably
explicit
content.
content.
YouTube, I'm sorry.
So yeah. Anyway, it's the whole calling it AI is again deceptive marketing in a way, because that's really not what's going on at all.
Right.
There's nothing even pretending to be intelligence with most of these. I understand that some of them have some background things. I understand that there are some of them and they have some background stuff going on that are some more math and logic things applying to, so it can deal with answering your queries, but it's just not. It's not Skynet, right? That's just all there is to it. Right, it's not. Exactly. It's not even. Yep. It's at best, it might be how Skynet learns how to talk. That's it. You know.
They ran an experiment where they tried to teach an AI system security by watching 3 platoons of Marines in 29 Palms. And then after about 6 weeks of it learning from how Marines did things, they were like, okay, Marines, break the machine. Okay, we want you to get past our new guard system. Okay, these Marine, and this is on, I think it's on military.com or something, or the Military Times or something. The Marines got past it by literally crawling under a cardboard box. Okay, one guy walked
Metal Gear
like
Solid.
A tree. These were the words in the article. He walked like a tree. And because the AI had not been trained on these absurd Looney Tune level of things that Marines just knew how to do, because we're problem solvers, they got past this. This thing never saw them. It logged 0 intrusions into the camp. And the scientists who put this thing together were like, what? And we're like, yeah, so you know the average score of a Marine's like 18 on the ASVAB, right? We're not even smart and we're beating this thing.
You guys, it's 11:34. We've been going 2 hours. Well, not quite 2 hours because I started late. Hour and 40 minutes. I would love to continue talking about this.
Yeah, this is good. Let me show you my thing that I found, and I get up and my office is a disaster because of everything I'm trying to sell and all that. But I was talking about how indies can do things that are specific to them, right? If you look, there's like a Lego city back there, right? A whole street. I got lights and all that stuff. So I have Matthew Cole and his grav bike right here, right? These pieces they're not Lego brand. They're a knockoff China brand that's pretty good, whole lot cheaper. You know, they're ordered by the piece. I have about 20 sets, right? The little guy is actually Lego. What'd you say?
Wish.com Legos.
No, they're definitely better than that, because you can get sets. You can get some really bad knockoff stuff if you're like buying like that. But there are a couple of brands now that are pretty getting better, right? But a toy, right? I got a toy. I haven't settled on a price point yet. I think it costs me about $7.50, $8. I'd have to go back and look at my math again, to source. The most expensive part is actually the Lego dude. Like, he's genuine Lego, because no one makes non-genuine Lego people that aren't weird abominations, But there we go. I've got about 15 left to sell. I've got little bags. I'll see what happens.
Awesome.
That probably doesn't make much sense for you, Jonathan, does it? I see you've got some miniatures, some plastic miniatures up there.
That's my Warhammer I got from Mini Wargaming. That's my Chaos Army that someday I'll paint. Sure, right. So that's that. I have my whole board game wall here that my wife says is her retirement plan for when I die.
You see my board games back there.
Yeah. But that kind of stuff is great because it gives your readers a tactile engagement with your story that they have to spend time with. Like watching Katie build Rivendell is great for Lord of the Rings, because they need the help. But that tactile engagement with your brand is fantastic.
A model made of ship. A fan 3D printed it for me. I haven't figured out the pipeline yet to get this as a thing that, hey, you want a model you can paint and have. Totally exists. Haven't figured out the pipeline for that yet, but here it is.
David's working on
Find the guy who loves 3D printing.
Yep. So all stuff. Yeah, it's like, I know it's funny because I don't know, Katie's like, we got to go, and then I open up a can of worms again. It's like, I know David's the hobbyist guy, but David is also like the hardcore hobbyist guy, like working on a game, like, and 3D printing stuff for that, right?
He's the one who trots out the phrase, "The bar is low." He's like, gonna do cool stuff.
Right. So if David finishes that stuff, he'll have cool stuff too. So
yeah.
But you are looking at the difference between Tradpub and Indie at this point. I mean, you're lucky if Trad gives you bookmarks.
Right.
Whereas I could have a bookmark ready to go in an hour. I'm sure I could have a very nice. I'd spend most of that time in Photoshop, and then 5 minutes finding a website that would print and ship them to me and look great. Right. Most of it would be in Photoshop.
That goes to your store, so you always have the option of re-engagement. It's just the basic things you can do that don't cost very much. And I mean, this kind of stuff is great because it's people spending time with your story beyond the story itself. So you're outside of that allotted book reading time because people have that space and you belong in that space. Okay, it's like that age-old thing of I get into bed and then my wife decides that's when we're going to talk. No, that's not your space. But getting out of that book reading space and actually being in a habit-breaking kind of format with that kind of thing is amazing. It's so good.
The other thing that this sort of thing does is, because we have become such an audio-visual society now, right? We are not a text. We don't consume our information via text. Everybody wants to watch a movie. Everybody wants to watch the cartoon, right?
I have subtitles on, but
you get right. Well, but you get what I'm saying, though, right? Is that the visual is so important for so many people. What's the number of people that would rather watch a movie than read the book, right?
Right.
So doing the extra stuff too also re-engages those other senses that people are more used to relying on in 2025 because they haven't read a book as often. What can I do? I'm going to bundles of a paperback and this, and it's you call it what? Call it a birthday bundle, right? This is for giving to a 12-year-old. It's your birthday bundle. You get the toy with the book, and you get the book. You engage both of it. There you go.
Yep. At Comic-Con, I did homemade cookies. I stuck a homemade cookie in a baggie. You buy a book. First of all, you can just have a cookie. This shows you how good I am at making things that taste good. Okay. You buy the book, I'll give you 5.
Nice.
Okay?
That's funny.
And you
Is
have
that
no
okay?
idea how many obese neckbeards will buy your book just because there's cookies with it. know your people.
That's
Okay,
the most
real,
horrifying thing I've heard all night, and I think that's the stopping point, right, Katie?
I can do better.
so earlier Anne was contributing a lot. Just want to show a couple of nice things from the chat. This was back when we were doing audiobook stuff. Mentions you need like acting for a good audiobook.
Yeah.
And some books are totally ruined by a bad reader. She's talking about the narrator there.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew
And she said, you know, the real win is when you find a book at the Walmart as opposed to Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
That's similar to what I was saying about, I heard somebody saying, do you really own the culture until your side's books are in the airport?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Which we didn't get there, and that's fine. That was just an interesting thought that there are limits to limits to the influence of indie, obviously.
Yeah.
Although at this point, how many people are really buying books out of the airport?
I would suspect that airport
TV
bookstores actually do well because they're a time when someone knows they're going to be stuck sitting for a long time. So I bet there are people that buy books at airports even if they don't end up reading them.
And it's also an excuse not to talk to the person next to you.
Right.
So
True.
They serve multiple purposes, but getting your book selected for that is different.
Yeah, we can totally I would love to talk again with you. I cannot even form words. I would love to talk with you guys about this subject again and hit some of the stuff that we didn't reach tonight. And next time we're just AI forbidden subject. Don't even.
We only hit it a few times, and it wasn't the same old.
No, it wasn't. It was
sort of approaches. I think they were different angles.
Patrick was making a pun because you missed your moment with being in that contest.
Oh yeah,
you missed your rolling moment.
Oh,
I ended up being, I think, 2 ebook sales short of having a record month in February, and I was going to be really wanted that because February is the shortest month, and for it to have the most royalty month, I was going to be like, yeah, I was 2 books short. I was a little sad about that, but that's okay.
Anne just made a good point that sometimes books are more visual status symbols, where you want to be seen reading this book.
Sure.
You want to be seen reading the Obama book. It doesn't mean the book got read, which is okay because Obama didn't write it. Yeah, that's not what that book accomplishes.
That's a whole different part of Trad publishing, and it's called money laundering. Political books are basically money laundering.
But the value that the reader is getting out of it isn't reading the book. It's being seen reading the book. And that's something important to understand as well, which is why authors need to work on their cover art, because if you want people to see your reader reading the book, then they shouldn't be doing it with a brown paper bag over it.
Right.
You can get away with it in ebooks.
That's going to be a hard thing for indies because you're going to have to spend some money probably, or have a specialized set of skills going in.
Yeah, this cover, $1,300, and that's the second time I had it made.
Well,
but
this one was actually cheaper, but most of mine are about $700.
Yeah,
this one was a little
mine
cheaper.
Was paid for by Kickstarter. I didn't go into debt. Mine was paid for by Kickstarter.
Nice.
Now I'll say this.
It's either money or time. Like David did his own. But you have to figure it out, right? Like you have to know what you're doing, and sometimes that takes learning what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So
David doesn't really count in this because didn't he do his book covers just with code? Isn't it just code?
I don't know.
That's what happened. He did, didn't he? It's just code that creates the visual of the front cover of his book, right?
Yeah, yes.
David is not a reproducible situation here. This is a uniquely David thing, and that
like,
aspect. Like
he had
I'm gonna write some code that makes geometry for my front cover. What? No, he doesn't even use a modeling program. He does geometry with code. Why?
He's talked about when he does his paperbacks, which he hasn't done yet. When he does a new cover for them, he wants to have a spaceship on the front, and yeah, he's doing that with code too. So I think it might be edge case here.
I've got a funny story about a spaceship on my cover, but I don't know if you want me to tell it because we gotta go.
I don't know him super well, but he also strikes me as the kind of guy who's doing it because he wants to.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to appeal to his audience. He's doing it because he wants to do it.
I think he knows that his books, the audience is very strange and narrow and hard to find.
It's that niche internet audience. Yeah,
it is a very neat, which I think my review of his book makes it perfect for indie. Yeah, I think my review of his book he actually still has pinned. At least the last time I looked, it was he still has as his pinned tweet is my review of it. And my first sentence of the review of his book is, "This is a very hard book to recommend." Right? It's a good book. No, I think I say this is a very good book. It's also a very hard book to recommend, I think is how I start it. Because it is so niche.
And for stuff like that, it's a lot easier as an indie to indulge yourself, right? Because it's like, well, if I like it, then my target audience is going to like it and enjoy that.
Yeah.
The thing that I'm spending my time on making perfect and right in the way that I like it, will be appreciated.
Yeah. Happy is he in that thing which he alloweth. Yeah. If you are happy with it and you are content, who cares? Okay. Now, if you're going to come and cry at me that millions of people aren't reading your code-covered book, then I'm going to punch you in the throat. Because now this sucks for your audience and you're unhappy. Okay.
Which I'll say,
if you're happy.
His cover's not bad. His cover's not bad. I think it does its job, right? Would I say that it is the best at selling his book of covers it possibly could be for that book? Well, no, probably not. It's not going to really communicate the weird niche subgenre that lists the what is it? Well, the thing that cracked me up so much was, he mentions the tune of a hymn. High for doll or whatever, in relation to a funeral that's happening, what was sung, but he specifies what hymn it's sung to because there are multiple settings for that. It's just like, that's a very specific subgenre. It's like, but I think it does its job. Okay. Yeah. Good enough. It does good enough. Definitely better than plenty of indies I've seen.
Well, maybe not. Brighton made a whole crap ton of money off of doing that stuff.
Right.
I learned about genetics from reading Jurassic Park.
It's all trade-offs, right? Like, how much time, how much money do you want to invest to get like that optimal cover?
Right.
All right. Thank you guys.
Put a fin
so
in it.
Well,
I had fun. We didn't get to all of the things that I wanted to talk about, and that is totally fine. You guys know that means there will be content down the road. I recommend following the Fantasy Files podcast. I have fun listening to their stuff, and I'm very, very pro indies. So it's always interesting to hear other readers who have slightly different takes than I do. And follow Michael and Jonathan and Jeff and read their stuff. I have reviewed at least one thing from each of them. Actually, I think Jonathan is the only one that I've only done 2 for. So Yeah, definitely
That's
recommend.
Jonathan's fault.
Don't you only have 2 out?
Yeah, she's working on a third one, but
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, and like, subscribe, comment below. Guys, have a great evening and great day tomorrow because it's late now. Good night, everybody.